Close the doors of your mind from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all emotions, all desires, all fears, all laziness, all deceitfulness of riches, all hatred, all jealousy, all envy, all strife, all complaining, all mumbling, all fornication, all adultery. Close the doors of your mind from all inordinate affections and all types of lustful thoughts and lustful mind. And bring your mind to center and bring your mind to balance within yourself, within your cranial nerves, within your 12 lunar centers, within your 12 cranial nerves, within your frontal lobe, within your hands and your feet, within your kidneys and your liver, within your heart, and your capillaries and your dendrites and your axons, through your eyes and your ears, through your nose and your mouth. And bring your gates and close the gates and the doors of your mind. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day of warning. Today is a day, I say, Chag Sukkah. First day, Chag Sukkah. Chag, Feast of Booths, knowing that these days are a culmination of one's obedience for 6 months. For 6 months, we labored, and the 7th we rest. For 6 months, we labored, and we got to a Turah. Then we for kafar, then we afflicted ourselves, and now we're at the culmination of the actual ending of a 7 periods. And knowing that the 7 periods represents our reasoning skills and our reasoning thoughts, and our reasoning within ourselves and our understanding within ourselves, and we should think about, I say, have a makashaba, focus on those things which are higher than us, which are higher than our own being and our own thoughts and our own mind. That's Yahuwah Elohim, who sits above the 7 heavens, the Shabai Shama'ims, above the 13th Shammai, who sits above on his throne with his Ben Yahusha at his right hand. For he governs all gods and sits above all, and he commands that all repent and turn back to him. So today, this day, we acknowledge the one who formed the earth in 6 days, and he rested the 7th. The one who formed all of the generations of the actual Shamaims and all the beings and all of the Malaki and all of the beings that have the Neshama, from the creeping things to the birds and to the Bahima and to all things on the earth. Yahuwah Elohim and the God and the fish of the sea. He commands all to be fruitful and multiply and rabah. And even as the fishes of the sea and all the animals on the surface and all the insectoids and all the birds multiply, he commands man to be fruitful and multiply as well, to replenish the earth and subdue it, to be in the dominion of all these other beings that replenish themselves and being fruitful and multiply. So we look at ourselves as these beings and these Elohims, these gods that rule over these beings, and they look to us for guidance. They look to us that they may follow us, that we may not follow them. So we look at this world, we look at this day, we look at this day as the first day, and we look at it as a day to move forward. So as we move forward in these 7 days, and for the rest of the rest of your life, move forward in kindness, ahab, joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, samuna. But we will in no wise clear the guilty, not even for ourselves and for others. For that is just, and that's the just judgment of Yahuwah. So look at the first day of the actual. Look at the 7 feasts, right? We're on the 7th one now. First we started with Pesach. And that was, that was the 13th day in between the suns when Yahushua was crucified, and the 14th day even they took the Pesach with the feast in their mouth while Yahushua Mashiach was slain, and they didn't have no idea. Then we went into Chag Matzah after that. Chag Matzah, 7 days you eat unleavened bread with no leaven was supposed to be found in your house, from the first day to the 7th day. And that's the same way you're supposed to have your life, from the first day until the 7th day for the rest of your life. It repeats every single week, right? So you're not supposed to have no leaven, no kamats, things that rise up. Then we got to Bakur, and we talk waving the sheaf, nu anuf, waving our hands and giving an offering to Yahuwah immediately after that Shabbat. After that weekly Shabbat, after when the sun go down, culminating the start of waving that sheaf. We did it immediately at the dawn when the sun went down, knowing that these things are transitions and understanding these things. Then we did descending over to the 4th feast, Chag Sukkah. We counted 49 days, and on the 50th day we celebrated Chag Sukkah, Feast of Weeks. We waved the sheaf again, our harvesting. and the things that we did from that time forward, and we offered another offering to Yahuwah. Then we went to Yom Teruah, we just passed. The 6th day, the first day of the 7th month, where we blew the shofar, the ram's horns, and understanding the 2 silver trumpets and what they were for, the Qahalath. And the Qahalath was to bring in the Aydah. And knowing that the Qahalath was supposed to bring in the Aydah, and also the chiefs, and also the leaders, and also the horn, or the alarm blast, the different distinction of sound. And all that's important to understand. And then what does that do? He said, let the birds fly, and let them multiply, and let them fly. I would say afuf, right? And we just did kafar. Kafar, we just understanding why kafar is important, why you need to afflict yourself, why you need to humble yourself down and bring yourself to a state in your consciousness to where you can now, like I say, grow your eagle's feathers and your claws back. Just like Nebuchadnezzar did. He had to practice righteousness in the 7 periods in order for him to ascend back up. Knowing that righteousness was extended to us, even as Abraham obeyed his laws, statutes, and commandments, even during the time of famine, pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places. And we ought to obey his voice and his call. When Yahuwah tells you to go somewhere else, when something happens in another place, you got to go somewhere else. But you still got to be obedient to what he said. It doesn't matter where you are. It's inconvenience, but guess what? You still got to build an altar. You still got to pitch your tent, even as Abraham did, and you still got to offer to Yahuwah. And it's just like that. Right? So we look at ourselves as that. Now we're in Chag Sukkah. Chag Sukkah, right? Now you say events took place and you was in Kafar, and now you're in Chag Sukkah, but you're in a whole other place. Right? So you look at Chag Sukkah, they say it's a time where the tabernacle, he comes and dwells, and we dwell in booths for 7 days. And all that's important to understand. But we're going to understand a little bit more, right? Understand a little bit more. So this is Odes of Solomon, ODE. Odes of Solomon, ODE, chapter 23. Odes of Solomon, 23, 1 through 4. Odes of Solomon, ODE, Shaloma, chapter 23, 1 through 4. It says, joy is for the Kudash ones. It says, and who will put it on but they alone? So who gonna put on? What is joy supposed to be for? Kindness, ahab, joy, that is one of the fruits of the Ruach. He said, that's only who gonna put that on but the Kudash ones. That's the only people that can put it on. Put on yourselves beloved, Kudash, and compassionate heart. Right? Who else gonna put on that type of joy? The beloved people, the Kudash ones. Verse 2 says, Khan, or grace, is for the elect ones. Who is grace for? Who is that for? Many are called, but few are chosen. If it were possible, Satan could try to deceive the elect, but who else great Khan is going to be for? And who will put it on but they who possessed it from the beginning? From where? From the beginning. From the beginning of this whole thing. Who else is going to put it on from the beginning of from the beginning of the equilux to the equinox, then coming through and counting from the first Shabbat, then start counting for the first feast, the Chag Mu'az. Who kept it from the beginning? This is the 7th period. This is the 7th feast. Who else are you going to put it on? And then it says, verse 3 says, love, ahab, is for the elect ones. Love is for the elect ones. He said, and bind it, above all things, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Right? It's only for the elect ones. And who will put it on but they who possessed it from the beginning? For this is the commandment that you heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. He said, who else going to put it on? For all that immerse in Yahushua have put him on. Who else going to put it on? It's only for the Kudash ones. It's only for the elect ones. Verse 4 says, walk in the knowledge of Yahuwah. Come, let us press on to know Yahuwah. He said, walk in the knowledge of Yahuwah, and you will know the Khan, or grace, of Yahuwah's generosity. His generosity. He said, both for exaltation and for the perfection of his knowledge. That's all we're doing. Trying to perfect his knowledge. Perfecting his knowledge, right? So this is 1 Samuel. This is 1 Samuel, or 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, or Bith Shamuel, Ba'is Shamuel, chapter 24. chapter 24, verse 18. Bais Shamuel, chapter 24, verse 18. And it says, and God came that day to Daud and said to him, and God came to, and it says right here, and they have GAD in here. Is that in your book too? You see that? Yeah. And God, and he says, and God came, and Elohim, Yahuwah came to that day to David and said to him, go up and raise an altar to Yahuwah. And God, and it says in Gad, and God, it says in Gad, that's what it says. Go up and raise an altar to Yahuwah on the threshing floor of Aruah, the Jebusite, or Jebusite. So Daud went up to Gad's word, went up at Gad's word, at Yahuwah's commandment. And it says, and when Aruah looked down, he saw the king and his servants coming on toward him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. So he hit the ground. And Araunah said, why has my master the king come to his servants? And Daud said, to buy the threshing floor from you. To do what? He said, I come to buy something, in order to build an altar to Yahuwah, that the plague may be averted from the people. He said, I come to build an altar. And get what he said. And Aruah said to David, let my master the king take and offer up what seems good to him. It says, here are the oxen for the burnt offering, and the threshing sledges, and the yokes of oxen for the wood. All this, O king, Araunah, give to the king. And Araunah said to the king, may Yahuwah your Elohim accept you. So he said, may he accept what you're doing. But then go for David said. But the king said to Araunah, no. He tried to give it to him for free. He said, no. But I will buy it from you for a price. Why? I will not offer offerings to Yahuwah my Elohim that cost me nothing. Right, so you look at all the offerings that one has to offer during this week. He said, how much did it cost you? He said, I'm not going to offer nothing to Yahuwah that don't cost me nothing. You going to give it to me for free? He's like, no, I don't want it. I want it to cost me something. Why? Because if it costs me something, then guess what? It's value. I'm adding value to something that I'm doing. So therefore, I'd rather it cost me something. So Daud bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And Daud built the altar to Yahuwah and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So Yahuwah responded to the plea of the land, and the plague was averted from Yasharal. So we look at all the things that one does during this week, and then for the rest of your life, when you offer something, he said, I'd rather it cost me something. I'd rather it cost me some money or some type of value in order to add value to it. Right. So this is 2 Corinthians chapter 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 1. Actually, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness with lawlessness, right? What partnership have light with darkness? Just like in the beginning. He separated the light from the darkness. And that's what one does during this time. And he says, or what fellowship have light with darkness? What accord has Mashiach with Belial? We know Belial is a worthless individual with worthlessness. That's why why I think Daud said, I'm not going to offer nothing to you who it don't cost me nothing. He said, it don't cost me nothing. Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of Yahuwah Elohim with idols? He said, what good is that? He said, know ye not that your body is the temple of Yahuwah? In Ezekiel, it says they son of man, these people set up idols in their heart. He said, what agreement do you have that needs to be severed? Right? And it says, for we are the temple of the living Elohim. And Elohim said, I will make my dwelling among them. Were we in Chag Sukkah? He said, what fellowship do I have with idols? What fellowship? So you going to be worthless? So you want me to offer up something worthless to you? But he says, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Therefore go out from the midst and be separate from them, says Yahuwah of hosts, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuwah Allah. You be a part of my family. Yahuwah Almighty, Shadi, Saba'o. He said, you be a part of my royal household. Well, you got protection from Malachi. You got protection. You got storms and tempests and all types of things around you. You got fire around you. He said, you'll be my sons and daughters, and nobody won't be able to come near you. You get what it says? Verse 7 says, since we have these promises, so this is a promise. It says, beloved. You mean Dawood. What makes your beloved more greater than your beloved? He said, I could spot my beloved at 10,000. Let us cleanse ourselves from all defilement of the body and ruach, bringing Kudash to completion in the fear of Elohim. Why? Because who else is going to put it on? Who else is going to put on joy and calm and grace and love? Who else is going to put that on? But us. Who else is going to do that? Perfecting Kudash and complete it. Who else is going to do that? Verse 2 says, make room in your hearts for us. We have wronged no one. We have corrupted no one. And we have taken advantage of no one. I do not say this condemn you, for I said before that you are in our hearts to die together and to live together. Right? He said you are in our hearts, right? So this is Bereshit, Genesis chapter 2. Bereshit, Genesis 2 through 7. Bereshit, Genesis 2 through 7. It says, thus the Shamaim in the earth were completed in all their array. Right? Because what feast we on? We're on the seventh feast. We're on the seventh feast. And it says, but the seventh day Yahuwah Elohim had finished the work that he had. By the seventh day Yahuwah Elohim had finished the work that he had been doing. Right? By the seventh day, he's like, I'm done. This is the seventh feast. He said, I'm finished. So on the seventh day, Yom, he rested, or Shabbat, from all his work. Amazingly, this first day is a Shabbat, right? Of this Mu'ad. But what happens after these 7 days? Remember, we're laboring for, this is the first day of Sukkah, and it's the first day, but we do it for 7 days. Right? So this is like the first day of creation. But it's the seventh feast, and we resting from all our labors, right? But at the same time, it's the first day and the seventh day all colliding at one time. The same way when you look at the first day of the seventh month. Right? So this is literally colliding at the same time. This is the first day, it's a Shabbat, but it's the seventh day, it's the seventh feast. And it says, then Yahuwah Elohim barak the seventh day and made it Kudash. That's why I think he made this day Kudash. Because who else going to put it on? Who else going to put it on? Who else going to put on love, joy, and grace, and calm? Who else going to do that? But the Kudash ones. Those who did it from the beginning. Because on it, he rested Shabbat from all the work that he worked, from all the work of creating that he had done. He said, I'm finished. Verse 4 says, this is the account of the Shamaim and the earth when they were created. When Yahuwah Elohim made the earth and the Shamaim. He said, this is the count. So what do you think he's doing now? What do you think this first day represents? A Akkad. Maybe we just read separating light from darkness. Because that's what he did on the first day. He said, come out from among them and be separate. What fellowship have light with darkness? And guess what it says? Verse 5 says, now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up. For Yahuwah Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. He said, there's no one there. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed Adam from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And Adam became a living being. Right? said, look at that. Amazingly, you have first 6 days he created, and the seventh he rested. Then he rested the seventh day, which is today. This is the first day of the seventh month, but it's the first day you start to see the first day he started creating. All at the same time. He's doing two things at one time. Right, so that word, it says, but streams came up from the earth. That word for streams is Aid. It's Aleph and Daleth. It means a fog, a mist, a vapor came up from the earth. It's a mist, came up from the earth. When you look at the word, you look at Aleph, it means strength. Then you look at the Daleth, it means door. Strength of the door. He said a mist. You mean a door was opened. Strengthen the door. A door came up from the earth. But he says mist, a vapor. But it was a door. Right? And then it says right here, but streams came up. Or it said that word for came up, and it says came up from. It says that streams came up from the earth, right? So that word from is mean, mini, or meme and noon. Men, meme and noon. They say, some say minute, but they say men. But that word for men means, it says from or out from. It says on the side of. That's what that word means, men. On the side of, off the side of, part of. Part of. Right? And it says, but streams came up, or he say that word for came up is Allah, and it says came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. That word for water is shaga. They say sugar? No, shaga. His word is shaga. It says, and the earth shaga, the whole face of the surface of the ground. That word for watered is shaga. To give, it means to give, to drink. It gives water to drink. He said a mist came, a men came up, a door was opened, an aid, an odd, a door sprung up from the earth, and it came up and watered the whole face of the ground, or the Adama, or Shaga, the ground. And guess what happened? And this also means to give drink, to cause a drink, to irrigate, to drink water. Right? It came up and it sprung up from the ground and it started to water. He said a mist did that. A door that was open. The door opened and guess what? Boom. He's like, what is this door that's opening that's giving out this mist that's watering the whole face of the ground? Right? And that word for ground is Adama. Because we know that word is Adama for ground. He said the water the whole face of the ground. The surface of the ground is Adama. It means the ground, land. It means redness, the soil, the ground. It said it sprung up from the ground. It said a men sprung up, a door was open, an aid, and then it watered the whole face of the ground. The Adama. And we know that Adama is what? Aleph, Daleth, Meme. That's what? You got Dam, which is Daleth and Meme, and you got Aleph. That's strength in the blood. But then also it has the female at the end. The Ha, Adama. Because you know why? Because it watered the face of the ground. Because the earth is a living creature. It is Mother Earth. Both male and female. How you say it? That's why you see both male and female in here. Adama. It formed the whole face of the Dama, right? Right. So but all that took place on that day. Amazingly, right? So this is the book of what are we going to? Okay, yeah. So this is the book of Psalms. Actually, the book of Book of Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 15. Devarim chapter 4, verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 15. Therefore watch yourselves very carefully, since you saw no form on the day that Yahuwah spoke to you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Right? Beware lest you act corruptly by making a carved image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of any of male or female. Why? You saying why does he say that? He said a likeness of male and female, because when you look at male and female in the beginning, that's what he made in the beginning. That's what Yahuwah made. So when you start doing and making another carved image, and he say male and female, then you start leaving who you are to go worship something else that's lower than you. Because you are male and female. But you're taking something that is wood and stone or gold and silver, and you're making an image of a male and female, and then you go worship the male and female when you are male and female human beings with life in you. Right? It says the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, right? Because that's what these are lower than you. So if you go and you make an image of yourself and you worship it, then guess what? Then you have animals you start worshiping. And they say the earth, animals on the earth, or the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water of the earth. This is what he's talking to Adam and Kuh. He's talking to his male and female children that he gave all authority and dominion to, whom he formed from the Adamah, and the water came up. The men came up, the door opened, and it watered the midst of the ground, and it watered the whole face of the ground. All that took place. And it says what? And beware lest you raise your eyes to Shamayim, and you will see the Shamash, Yark, and the Kukab, and all the hosts of Shamayim, and you be drawn to bow down to them and serve them. Things Yahuwah, your Elohim, has allotted to all peoples under the whole Shamayim. So you see, Yahuwah like, I've given this to everybody. Why are you going to worship it? He said, I've allotted it to everybody. Right? But Yahuwah has taken you and brought you out of the land of iron furnace, out of Mizraim, to be a people of his own inheritance, as you are this day. Furthermore, Yahuwah was angry with me because of you, and he swore that I should not cross Yarden, and that I should not enter the good land that Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you for an inheritance. For I must die in this land, I must not go over the Yarden, but you shall go over and take possession of the good land. Take care lest you forget the covenant that Yahuwah your Elohim, which he made with you, and make a carved image, the form of anything that Yahuwah your Elohim has forbidden you. For Yahuwah your Elohim is a consuming fire and a jealous Elohim. Why? Because what fellowship have Mashiach with idols? What fellowship he had with people, with Balial? He said, how can you even do that? He said, you got to put these things away. Right? All these are a part of the things that one has to put away. But look at this Chag Sukkah, right? So that word, so we're moving on. This word for Sukkah, tabernacles, is Sukkah. We talked about this before, right? It means thicket, covert, booth, thicket. It also means cottage, pavilion, tabernacle, tent, booths, canopies, right? You ever seen canopies? Canopies, right? A hut, a temporary shelter, someplace you just temporary at. He's like, why am I here? It's temporary shelter, right? Right, so you look at Sukkah, you look at the Samik, right? Because we know we look at Sukkah, we look at Samik, Kaf, and Hay. Sukkah, right? Samik, Kaf, and Hay, right? Which, what? Samik is what? Fortification. It means shelter, spine, skeleton, branch, tower, support, pillar. Right? Look at your body, you got a spinal cord on the inside of your body. And you have Kaf, which is hand, leaf, productivity, fruitfulness, teachings, reproducing, hollow rock, hollow hand. Look at our hand, right? Look at our hand as these new. So we wave our hands. We wave our hands in our sheath with our hands. Right? Then you have the Ha, which is behold, reveal, light rays, gifts, stars, illumination. Right? All that's important when we look at Chag Sukkah. But all this is important, right? Look at it when you look at it. But when we look at the actual numbering systems, of course, you know, Psalmic is 60, the Kaf is 20, and the Ha is 5, which equals to 85, right? Which equals to 13, which equals to 4, which equals to 4. Right, so we look at all the transitions of time. We look at the four corners of your garments. Look at the four corners of the actual altar with the elephant tusk. Right? Remember, we're offering and offering every single day. And he said, why? So, a food offering every day. But all these are a part of it. But when we start looking at it, you look at a sukkah. A sukkah is not just a temporary, so you just jump in a tent or pavilion. A sukkah is an offering. A sukkah is a temporary, how you say, a temporary dwelling place. It's your body. It's your skeleton. It's your body. It's your place that is fortified. It's your hands and your palms. It's like leaves on a tree. It's teachings. It reproduces. It's something that reproduces. It's something that you continually do throughout your generations. It's like light rays of the sun. It's like light rays of the sun. Right? It's a like you say, a tent. It's a temporary dwelling place. It's stars. It's like illumination. It's more than just getting in a tent. It's more than just dwelling in a temporary thing outside with some tent pegs inside. Right? Because know ye not that your body is that tent, that hall, that body, that temple. Right? So this is Psalms 19 and 1. Psalms 19 and 1. Psalms 19 and 1. It says that the Shamayim declare the kabod of Yahuwah, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. So we look at the sky above, we look at the Shema. He said, lest you be drawn to worship the Shemesh keeping in the yard. Because that's what we do. But he said, look at the stars above. He said, it declares his handiwork. He said, I've given this to everybody. He said, all this stuff moves. It says, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day he pours out speech, and night to night he reveals knowledge. This that we do a morning sacrifice and an evening sacrifice. For 7 days. We do all offerings all at one time in 1 week. And he said, what should be happening during this week? Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, cohabitating with the Malachi in the morning, noon, and evening for 7 days straight. The same thing you would do during the week. He said, you're doing it again. And he said, double. And guess what happens? And it says, there is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. He said, Yahuwah hear everything you say during this week, right? And get what it says. Their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, a sukkah, a hall for the sun, light rays. Behold light. Behold the light rays. He said, in them, inside of you. He said, I will make my dwelling among them. I will put a tent for the sun inside of you. And get what it says. Which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and a strong man runs his course with joy. Because you know why would he give joy? It's only given to the Kudash ones. Who else going to put it on? Who else going to put it on? And guess what it says? Its rising is from the end of the Shamayim, and its circuit to the end of them. And there is nothing hidden from its heat. He said there's nothing hidden. Right, so this is Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23, or Yikra 23 through 44. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the people of Yasharal, saying, on the 15th day of the 7th month, for 7 days is the feast of booths, Chag Sukkah, to Yahuwah. On the first day you shall have a Kudash convocation, and you shall not do any ordinary work. Abadah, right? Abadah Malakah. For 7 days you shall present a food offering to Yahuwah. 7 days you're going to present a food offering to Yahuwah. And on the 8th day you shall hold a Kadash convocation and present a food offering to Yahuwah. So how many days, how many months, right? How many months, right? So this is Book of Jubilees, chapter 12, Pseudepigrapha. Book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha. Book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 12. Pseudepigrapha, chapter 12. Book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 12, verse 25. And it says, and Yahuwah Elohim said, open his mouth and his ears. It says, so that he might hear and speak with them in the mouth of the language which is revealed, because it has ceased from the mouth of all the sons of men from the day of the fall. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and he began to speak in the Abri, or Hebrew, in the tongue of creation. And he took his father's books, and they were written in Abri, and he copied them and began to study them thereafter. And I caused him to know everything which he was unable to understand. And it says, and he studied them in the 6 months of rain. Right, so look at these 6 months. He said for 6 days, he said you're supposed to dwell in booths for 7 days. Right, so you look at studying the actual Torah, he studied for 6 months of rain, and then the 7th, he rested. But he said you're going to dwell in booths for 7 days. And then on the 8th day, you shall hold a Kudash convocation and present a food offering to Yahuwah. Right, so you look at those 6 days, those 6 months of rain. So you look at those are the 6 times that they walked around Jericho. You look at the 6 times that they walked around Jericho. They say the city that they were going to take. Then after 6 times, they had to walk around it on the 7th day. They had to walk around it 7 times in a row. 7 times in a row. And then after the 7 times in a row, they had to do something at the end after 7 times. They had to obey the commandments, and they had to do something too. On the 8th, after 7. What's after 7? 8. They had to do something. They had to do something. Because it all correlates. It all correlates. So we got to do this for 7 days. We do it for 6 days. And the 7th day, he said, you got to do it. You got to walk around 7 times. What do you think we're doing right now? We done did 6 months. So he said he studied in 6 months of rain, and now it's the 7th month. And now you got to do it 7 times in a row. You got to do the actual feast for 7 days, and then on the 8th day, something happens. Something happens. Right, and it says right here, you should for 7 days you shall present a food offering to Yahuwah, and on the 8th day you shall hold a Kudash convocation and present a food offering to Yahuwah. And it is a solemn assembly, and you shall not do any ordinary work. Malakah. These are the appointed feasts of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim at the times of Kudash convocation, for presenting to Yahuwah a food offering, burnt offering, and a grain offering, sacrifices and drink offerings, each on its proper day. So you gotta do, people saying, all these offerings at one time. At one time. It says besides Yahuwah's Shabbat. So that's on top of the Shabbats that you already kept, that you do during the week. So you're doing all the offerings all at one time during the week. And then you got the weekly Shabbats that you do during the week. So you're doing a double. He said you're doing a double. And besides the gifts, and beside all the vow offerings, and beside all your free will offerings, which you give to Yahuwah. So you got to do even double and triple. You get what it says? 39 says, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the produce of your land. Why would he say produce? Because when you harvest and planting, and you harvesting, and you bringing in the crops and the food, because it ain't for lazy people. You shall celebrate the feast of Yahuwah 7 days. You got to celebrate it 7 days. Why you got to celebrate it 7 days? You got to do something 7 days. You mean you got to do something 7 times. It says, on the first day you shall have a solemn rest, or Shabbatun, and on the 8th day, Shemini, you shall have a solemn rest. And Shabbatun, and you shall take on the first day the fruit of the splendid trees. Branches, palm trees, boughs, leafy trees, willow brook, and you shall rejoice before Yahuwah, your Elohim, 7 days. Why? Because when you go and harvesting your plants and stuff, you got to cut branches. And you look at your life, what branches you got to cut? What things you got to cut off in your life? What branches you got to cut in your life? What branches you got to cut off that you're going to use for shade? He's like, man, y'all, this is going to be my shade. All the branches I cut off, going to be from my shade in my life. What branches you got to cut off? Right? And then it says, and you shall celebrate the feast of Yahuwah 7 days of Sheba Yom in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations, forever. And you shall celebrate in the 7th month, and you shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All the native Israelite, Yasharali, shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the people of Yasharal to dwell in what? In Sukkah. He said, I made you to dwell in these booths. When I brought you out of the land of Mizraim, when I brought you out, I made you to dwell in tents. He said, I made you to dwell in tents. He said, Yahusha ain't come back yet. So why? He said, why are we practicing this? So when he do bring us out, he said, you know I made you to dwell in tents, right? You get what it says in booths, right? In temporary dwelling places. I made you to dwell in them. You get what it says? I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. Thus Mishah declared to the people of Yasharal and proclaimed it a feast to Yahuwah. They had to do all of that. Right? So that word for celebrate, we know it's kagag. It means, that word for kagag is kagag. To celebrate. It means to what? To hold a feast. To dance. To stagger. To make pilgrimage. To celebrate. To hold a feast. To hold a festival. To move in a circle. When do they move in a circle? 7 times in a row? Around the city? Oh, that was Turah. They moved around the city 7 times in a row. And what did they do after they moved around 7 times in a row? They gave a loud shout, a ruah to ruah. On the 8th time, they say right after 7 is 8, right? And it says that is to march in sacred procession. It's sacred to march around. To march around, they put you in school, they put you in a line, they be like, yeah, so follow the person in front of you. To march around, to observe a festival, implication, to be giddy, to dance, to hold a feast, a holiday, reel to and fro, nu anuf, wave your hands. That's what your actual cough represents. Your hands, your leaves, your tree branches, your tree branches, right? So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, Qahalath 11, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. Right, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. It says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7. How many days this feast is? 7 days. Or even to 8. What we do on the 8th day? And it says, for you do not know what disaster may happen on the earth. You don't know what's going to get ready to happen. You don't know if Yahushua coming back. You don't even know if he's coming back. He could be coming back tomorrow. Matter of fact, he could come back today. Right, so this is the Luke chapter 12, verse 38. Luke chapter 12, verse 35. Luke or 12:35. Luke 12:35. Luke 12:35. It says, "Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning. Be like," he says, "and be like men and women who are waiting for their masters to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks." He said they can open the what? They can open the door. What happened when he said a man rose up from the earth? He said the strength in the door. He said a door rose from the earth, and it was a mist. And get what it said. It says, "Barak are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes." He said, "Find awake." They're gonna stay awake. He says, "Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service, and have them recline at the table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch, or the third watch, and finds them awake, Barak are those servants." He said the first watch or the second watch. And it says, "But know this, that if the master of the house had known the hour the thief was coming, he would have not left his house to be broken into. You also must be ready, for the son of Adam is coming in an hour you do not expect." You say, why? You got to be dressed for service. You don't even know when he's coming back. He said, you don't even know, right? So this is the book of Exodus, chapter 23. Exodus 23:13. It says, Exodus 23:13. And it says, "Pay attention to all that I have said to you, and make no mention of the names of other gods." That's why he said, "What fellowship of Mashiach with idols? Nor let them be heard out from your lips." He said, don't be putting their praises in your songs when you're singing, when you're doing your offerings. I don't want to hear that. And he says, 3 times a year shall you appear. 3 times a year you shall keep a feast to me. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread, first watch. As I commanded you, you shall eat unleavened bread 7 days. Right? And then it says right here, it says 7 days. At the appointed time of the month of Abib. For in it you came out of Mizraim. He said, I want these people to know, when I brought you out of Mizraim, I made them to dwell in tents, in booths, in temporary dwelling places. That's why when they traveled through, they always stayed in there and they had to keep moving. Right? When it says right here, "None of you shall appear before me empty-handed." Why? Because you're supposed to bring in the produce of the land. And because remember, your hands represent your kaf. That's what Sukkah is. And get what it says, "And ye shall keep the feast of harvest of the first fruit of your labor," the feast of weeks. "And you shall sow, and of what you sow in your field, you bring in the produce. You shall keep a feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in from the field the fruit of your labor." It says he come in the first watch or the third watch. 3 times a year shall you, all your males, now you say a zakar or zakur, shall appear before Yahuwah your Elohim. Zakur, we know about that. It has a woo in the middle. Yeah, and you go all the way back to when you see zakar, you say zakar, nakobah. And it says right here, "You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened." So you ain't supposed to have no sin. "Or let the fat of the feast remain until the morning. The best of the first fruit of your ground you shall bring into the house of Yahuwah your Elohim." Right? So all that takes place, right? All that takes place, right? So we're going back to that Leviticus. He said you're supposed to bring in the pleasant trees. Because you know that word for trees is eights. Remember Leviticus 23, he said, bring in the pleasant trees of the field, the willow, the hollow, the palm branches. That word for trees is eights. It means timber, stock, plank, stalk, all these things, gallows, firewood. Right? Extra work. And he says, for I made Yasharal to dwell in booths. That word for dwell is yashab. I made them to remain, sit, to cause the sit, to cause the dwell, to be inhabited, to dwell, to remain, to settle, to marry. It means to settle, to remain. I made you to dwell in booths. Right? He said, I made you to dwell in these booths. Right? So this is the book of Aydah, Job chapter 7, verse 1. Job chapter 7, verse 1. Aydah chapter 7, verse 1. Job chapter 7, verse 1. It says, has not man a hard service on the earth? And are not his days like the days of a hired hand? He said, like a hired hand. And he said that Barak are my servants, and they see me coming, they're going to be dressed for service. They're going to be dressed for action. You're like a hired hand. Like a slave who longs for the shadow, and like a hired hand who looks for his wages. He's like, you just like a hired hand looking for his wages. And get what it says. So I allotted months of emptiness, and nights of misery are apportioned to me. He said, they are apportioned to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise? But the night is long, and I am full of tossing till the dawn. He said, I'm full of tossing to the dawn. What he tossing the dawn for what? My flesh is clothed with worms and dirt. My skin hardens, then breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and come to their end without hope. Remember, my life is a breath, and my eyes shall never see good. The eyes of him who sees me will behold me no more. And guess what he said after that? While your eyes are on me, I shall be gone. He said, while your eyes on me, he said, I'm going to be gone. And the cloud fades and vanishes. So he who goes down to Sheol does not come up. He returns no more to his house. What? He returns no more where? To his house, nor does his place know him anymore. He said they don't even know. He said they go all the way to Sheol, and he said he don't even turn to his house. He said, I don't even turn to my house. He said, I'm like a servant, a hired hand waiting for his wages. I'm waiting for wages for the things that I've done. This is Romans 6:23. Romans 6:23. Romans 6:22. Romans 6:22. It says, but now that you have been set free from sin, he said you should have been set free. All your branches have been cut off. All the things that one has, he said, you've been set free from sin and become slaves of Elohim. He said we become slaves of Yahuwah Elohim. The fruit you get leads to sanctification and is in eternal life. He said when he died, he said, I don't even return back to my house. He said, I'm gone. He said, I'm like a hired hand, a hired servant, waiting for his wages. He said, what wages you gonna get? He said, you see all that stuff they gotta do? You see all the stuff we gotta do for Sukkah? And people say, huh? He said, what I'm gonna get for all that? It says, for the wages of sin is death. He said, you've been set free from sin, which means you've been set free from death. But the free gift of Yahuwah Elohim is eternal life in Mashiach Yahusha, our master. He says it's eternal life. He's the free gift. Right, and what? Go back to Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus 23:37. These are the appointed feasts of Yahuwah, which you shall proclaim as the times of Kudash convocation. Who else gonna put it on? For presenting Yahuwah's food offerings. I'm like a hired hand. I'm waiting on my wages. I'm like a hired hand. He said, what I'm going to get for this? I'm like a hired hand waiting on my wages. And get what he says. Burnt offerings. He said, I got to do food offerings, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, drink offerings, each on his proper day. He's like, man, I'm just a hired hand. I'm a servant. Look at all this stuff I got to do. And get what it says. Besides Yahuwah Shabbats, and besides your gifts offering, I just doubled the wage. I just doubled the work at your desk. He's like, I'm like a slave. I'm like a abad, a servant, right? It says, besides the Yahuwah Shabbats, and beside your gifts. What's the free gift of eternal life? He said the free gift. The gift of Yahuwah is eternal life. He said it's a gift. You ever work for free and then somebody give you a gift? I've been waiting on my wages and then somebody just give you a gift. They just hand you a box with a present in it and you be like, oh, how thoughtful. And you ain't get paid yet. And you be wondering, where my gift at? Where my money at? Because that's when people go to jobs for. They go to get serving for. They waiting for their money. Then somebody just give you a gift. And you more appreciative of the gift than you are the wages, the check that you get. Because you got the gift first. And get what it says. Beside your gifts, and besides all the vow offerings, and beside all the free will offerings which you give to Yahuwah. He said, well, look at your gift. He said, I got to give, and he gives. He said, by you giving me all of this, give me all these offerings, and guess what? I'll give you eternal life. But he said, guess what you got to do? This book of Deuteronomy. This is the book of Devarim, chapter 28. Deuteronomy, chapter 28. Verse Deuteronomy 28. Yeah, I think it's Deuteronomy chapter 28. Yeah, Deuteronomy 28 and 45. Devarim 28:45. It says, and all these curses shall come upon you and pursue you and overtake you, till you be destroyed, because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah Elohim to keep his commandments and his statutes that he commanded you. People saying, why I need to keep Chag Sukkah? Yahushua said, if I don't come in the first watch or the second watch or the third watch, and I find, he said, Barak out those service, I come back. And get what it says. Then he said, they shall be a sign and a wonder against you and your offspring forever, because you did not serve, how you say, you wasn't a hired worker, but you didn't do something that you supposed to. You did not serve Yahuwah with your Elohim with joyfulness and gladness of heart. Because who else going to put it on? Who put on joy? Only one of the elect ones can put that on. Kudashma. Put on great Khan that only the elect ones can put that on. Who else going to put it on, love? Only the Kudash ones can put that on. And get what it says. Joyfulness and gladness of heart, because the abundance of all things. Because I gave you all of that. All the things they harvested and planting, and all of the offerings and free will offerings, and all the things they had to produce, to bring to him. He said, I give you all that abundance and all that. You should be joyful. And it says, therefore you shall serve your enemies, whom Yahuwah will send against you in hunger and thirst and nakedness and lacking everything. Now you see why he said, I'm a hired servant. He jokes that I'm a hired worker, and I'm waiting on my wages, and I'm going back to my grave, and I ain't even go back to my house. And he ain't gonna remember me no more. All right, so this is the book of Psalms 100, Psalms 101. Qahalath, Psalms 101. Psalms 101. It says, make a joyful noise to Yahuwah, all the earth. He said, the whole earth. He said, the whole earth gonna need to know this. Why do you think he have us moving in a Kagav in a circle in sacred procession, and you doing it 7 days in a row, and you doing all the free will offerings, the weekly Shabbat offerings, all the offerings at one time? He said, why? Because so the whole world know. Why? So they can hear you, so they'll understand. Hold up. He said, make a joyful noise to Yahuwah, all the earth. Serve Yahuwah with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know that Yahuwah, he is Elohim, and is he who has made us, and we are his. And we are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Because you see, when sheep are free, let the birds fly. When you want a caged bird, it says, enter his gates with thanksgiving, and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and barak his name. For Yahuwah is good, and his steadfast love endures forever. What do you mean? How you know his steadfast love endures forever? And his faithfulness to all generations. How do you know that? How do you know that? This is Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 1. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 1. And it says, my son and daughter, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. He said, let your heart do it. Your heart and your mind. For length of days and years and life and shalom and peace will be added to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Don't let joy leave you. Don't let all these things leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tables of your heart. He said, write them on your heart. And then right here, he said, write them on the tables of your heart. Right, this is Matthew chapter 15. John chapter 15 verse 1. John chapter 15 verse 1. Yeah, John chapter 15 verse 1. Sorry. And it says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Why do you think he tell you take all when you go through when you go through and put your pleasant trees? He said take the branches and make a booth out of them. What do you think them branches are for? The things you taking away. What do you think all the branches you cutting down from your booth for your booth? What do you think they're for? He said every branch in me that doesn't bear fruit, he takes away. What is he taking them branches off them trees for? He put them on the booth as a temporary dwelling place. Remember, those branches ain't got that long after you cut it and you put it on top of a booth. How long do you think them branches gonna last? They temporary. They ain't gonna last that long. Soon they gonna start to rot and smell, and they gonna just fade away. He said that's exactly how your life is. And he says, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does not bear fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. Why? You have to prune branches and stuff for Chag Sukkah. And get what it says. Already you are clean because of the word that I've spoken to you. And get what it says. Abide in me and I in you, and as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abide in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can't do anything. He said you can't do nothing. You can't bear no cucumbers. You can't bear no tomatoes. You can't bear no fruit vines. You can't bear no grapes, no muscadines. You can't bear it. You can't bear no mangoes. He said you can't do that. You can't do that by yourself. He said, for apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. and its branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing during the feast? They're supposed to gather in the eights, the firewood. You gather in the firewood, you gather in the branches that you prune, and then you throw those in the fire to keep you warm at night during it. Then you have the branches that you put on top of your house, in your sukkah. He said all that's a part of it. And guess what happens? If you abide in me, and my word abides in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. Why? Because you are my children. You are my sons and daughters. He said, cleanse yourself from all defilement of the flesh and spirit, and guess what? You be my sons and daughters. And being that we have these promises, let us cleanse ourselves from all the filthiness of it. And then guess what? He'll give us eternal life. That's our wages. We like a hired servant waiting on our wages. What's your wages for doing all that work? He said eternal life. It's a gift too. And guess what it says? If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, whatever you want, and it will be done for you. For this my Father is kabod, that you may bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. He said you gotta prove it. That's what Chag Sukkah is. He said prove that you actually are righteous and you're obedient. Just do it. Dwell in booths 7 days, and on the 8th day have a solemn assembly. Because there had something that happened on the 8th day when Yahushua cried out. Oh, it's just like the Turah when they cried out after the 7th time they walked around the city. And something happened. Right? And it says, and as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. He said, abide in my love. Because who else going to put it on? Who else going to put on love? But the Kudash ones. Them the only people who could put this on. You can't put this on. You be like, I'm going to put this on. No, you can't put it on. He said the only people who could put it on and put on love really the correct way are the Kudash ones. The only people who can put on grace, I say kind, the right way are the Kudash ones. The only ones who can put this on correctly are the Kudash ones. And it says, if you keep my commandments, that's the only people who can put this on correctly. Because he only gave it to one people. Yashral and Yehuda. He has not dealt so with any other people. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Who else gonna put it on? Who else gonna put this on? From the beginning. He said from the beginning. He made Adam in his own image. Who else gonna put him on? How you know this? And get what it says. Just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. He said, who else gonna put it on? These things I have spoken to you, that my joy, that my joy. Who else gonna put on this joy? Who else gonna put this on? Who else gonna do that? May be in you. I prepared a tent for the sun. I prepared in you a tent for the sun. What is a tent going to be inside of you? And where is the joy at on the inside of you? Where's the love at on the inside of you? In the tent. And guess what? Guess where you put the leaves and the branches at? On top of the tent. And where is that at? In you. That my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be fulfilled. Why? Because if you be full, why? Because this is the fullness of the joy. Because he said, why you who would destroy everybody? Because you ain't serving with joy and gladness for the abundance of things I provided for you so you can do Chag Sukkah. I gave you Chag Sukkah. And you didn't serve me with joy and gladness for me providing all of that for you to do Chag Sukkah. And he said, why you can't do that? Get what it says. Verse 12 says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have beloved you. Who can love each other like it was from the beginning? He said, this is the commandment you heard from the beginning, that you should love one another. Aha. He said, who else going to put this on? Who else can do this? Only we can do that. Everybody else can't put it on. And get what it says. Greater love that has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. He laid down his life for his friends. Get what he said, verse 14. You are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. Yahushua talking about Chag Sukkah. He's talking about Feast of Booths. That's how intelligent he is. He's able to formulate a whole thing. And he's only talking about Chag Sukkah. You get what he said? If you are my friends, if you do whatsoever I command you, no longer do I call you servants, huh? He said, man, I'm like a hired worker, like a servant. I ain't got no joy out. I'm waiting on my wages, and when I die, nobody gonna remember me. But Yahushua like, if my words are in you, which means my tent is in you, and inside that tent is joy, inside that tent is love, and inside that tent, how you say, that's your sukkah, that's your booth, it's kudash. And if you abide in me, and I in you, then guess what you get? You are no longer servants. Because you know what? Servants can't abide in the house forever. Servants get kicked. Servants gotta leave. After they finish doing their job, they gotta leave the house, the main house. He says, it says, no longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends. Because the only way you're gonna know what Yahuwah really doing, you gotta keep his commandments. That's the only way you're gonna really know what he really doing. Some people don't even keep it. They be like, I know what he doing. I say, yeah, you sure you do. He said, the only way you're gonna really truly know what Yahushua Mashiach and Yahuwah is doing right now, he says, you have to keep my commandments. And guess what happens? And it says, and I have called you friends for all that. It says, no longer do I call you servants, verse 15, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. Arise, shine, for the light has shone, the kabod of Yahuwah has arisen on you. I have made it known to you. And guess what he said? You did not choose me, but I chose you. He said, as Yahuwah is chosen, put on beloved and compassionate hearts. He said, I've chosen you and appointed you that you should go and do what? Bear fruit, that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask in my Father's name, he will give it to you. He's giving it to people who walk in kindness, ahad, joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, and munah, and self-control. And if you have those fruit, he said, anything you ask from Yahuwah, he will give it to you. He said, I want that. He said, I'll give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. So who else gonna put it on? And then what happens after that? If the world hates you for doing all that, you know that they had hated me before they hated you. So if you start doing that, and he said the world hate you, he's like, man, you know that they hated me way before they started hating you. So please don't be thinking like, oh man, they hate me. He's like, man, they hate me way before they hate you. If you were of the world will love it you as its own. But because you are not of the world, because I chose you out of the world, why? Because what fellowship have Mashiach with the idols? What fellowship have Mashiach with Belial? What fellowship have light with darkness? Because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you, because you ain't darkness. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is no greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. Right, so this is Yukanah chapter 10, John chapter 10. John chapter 10, verse 1. It says, truly I say to you, he who does not enter in by the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up another way, that man or woman is a thief and a robber. What happened on the seventh day? This is the 7th month, which is the 7th feast. What sprung out from the earth? A door, a aid. Aleph and Daleph, strengthen the door. The strength in the door arose What's the strength of the door? And a mist rose and watered the whole face of the ground. And it says, but he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. He who enters by the mist. It says, to him the gatekeeper opens. He said, man, he opened that. The gatekeeper opened in that. He said, the shepherd of the sheep. he said, the shepherd of the sheep. He opens. And the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follows him. For they hear his voice. They know what? They know his voice. Who else will go? He said, righteousness is going to be for you. And Yahuwah got your back. Your real God. He said, the sheep hear his voice. Why do you think Abraham obeyed his law? He obeyed my voice. My laws, my statutes, my commandments. And everywhere he went, he pitched his tent. And what did he do? He built an altar everywhere he went. A stranger they will not follow. He said, I'm not following no goon, no stranger. And he says, but they will flee from him. He said they're gonna flee, just like a bird out of a cage. What them birds do when they fled from the man and he let them out of the cage? They're gonna ride on Yahushua's shoulders. And guess what happened? For they do not know the voice of strangers. He's like, so what you said? This figure of speech Yahushua used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. Right? So this is verse 7. So Yahushua said to them, why he said it again? At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word be established. And he said, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. You know that strength in the door, that rose up. And he said, a mist rose, a door, and it started watering the face of the ground. He said, that's me. Because you know what happens when you water the face of the ground with mist? What springs up? Food. Food for the animals. For the creatures of the earth, his sheep. They eat from the ground. They eat green herbs. And what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He had to eat green herbs for what? 7 periods. And for those 7 periods, he had to eat and he said, my reason came back to me. And he realized Yahuwah rules in the kingdom of men. And he gave it to one shepherd. And I've been leading all these people astray. ChayParach you. And he said right here, truly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep, and all who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, you gotta go through that mist. He will be saved, and he will go in and out and find pasture. He said green pastures. He said, you're going to find green pasture. Why? Because I just watered the ground. I watered the Adama with a mist. It watered the whole Pinene, the face of the ground. He said, you mess around, you go through this door, you're going to find green pasture. Because it's green pastures everywhere. And get what it says. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I am come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Because if you ain't got no green grass, the sheep ain't got no green grass to eat from in the pasture. He said, this is Psalms 23. Psalms 23. Psalms 23. And 1. It says, Yahuwah is my shepherd. I shall not want. I have no lack. Because it's a whole bunch of mist coming from his door. It's like mist everywhere. And green pastures. He make me lie down in green pastures. I made my people, just know when I brought my sheep out of the land of Mizraim, my people, I made them to dwell in tents. I made them to dwell in tents. He said, he he makes me lie down in green pastures. What do you think Chag Sukkah is? He leads me beside the still waters. He bring you back to nature. He's like, still waters. He says, he restores my soul. He gave me drink and he gave me food. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. When did Yahushua say that? He said, you're my friends. Yeah, I ain't no longer call you servant. You call you friends. You keep my commandments. Because the shepherd leads them out. Because if righteousness is before you and Yahuwah got your back. He said, you got Yahushua in the front, and you got Yahuwah in the back, your rear guard, beating everybody, touching, taking out people who try to come at you from the backside, from the back. And Yahushua in the front leading you. He says, he leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. But this will be our righteousness if we keep his commandments. Because that's the only people who are going to understand it. Who else is going to put it on? And get what it says. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no rod. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Right? So this is the book of Yochanan, chapter 18. Yochanan chapter 18, actually Yochanan chapter 19, verse Yochanan chapter 19, verse 28. And after this, Yahushua, knowing that all was finished, said, to fulfill the scripture, I thirst. A jar full of sour wine stood there. He said it stood there. So, because we probably have a drink offering during this time. We probably have a drink offering every day. But guess what happened? So they put a sponge full of sour wine in his branch and held it to his mouth. And when Yahushua received the sour wine, he said, it is finished. Because this is the seventh feast. Matter of fact, Yahuwah said, this is the day I finished all my work that I finished. In the day that Yahuwah made the Shamayims in the earth. And he said he finished all his work that he had done. And he rested the Shabbat. He ceased from all his labors. And he barak the Shabbat day and made it what? Kudash. Because who else going to put it on? But the elect. But the Kudash people. Who else going to put it on? But they who from the beginning. This is the commandment you heard from the beginning. Who else is going to do that from the beginning? The people who gave it to. It says, and he bowed his head and gave up the spirit, the Ruach. Verse 31 says, since it was a day of preparation, and that the body should not remain on the cross on the Shabbat, for the Shabbat was a high day, and the Yahudim and Pilate, that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away, so that the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first. Right? They broke the legs of the first. And on the other that had been crucified with him. So they broke the legs of the first one, and they broke the legs of the second one. Right? But when they came to Yahushua and saw that he was dead already, they did not break his legs. How many thieves up there on the cross? How many people on the cross totality with him? 3. And how many did they break? 2. Right? We say they were completed, they were dead. And when they saw it, they were not dead, right? And they broke their legs, right? But when they saw Yahushua was dead already, they didn't break his legs. Because you know why? Because he said this is a third feast. This is Chag Sukkah. 3 times a year shall all your people appear before Yahuwah. And he said, none shall be appear before me empty. This is the third feast. And he said, when they saw he was dead already, they didn't break his legs. You know why they didn't break his legs? Let me show you why they didn't break his legs. It says, their legs might be broken, that they might take him away. So that the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Yahushua, they saw that he was dead already. They didn't break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced him in his side of the spear. And what happened? And at once came out blood and water. Where did that blood and water go to? He said what? In Bereshit chapter 2, when Yahuwah, the seventh day, he said, a water, a mist, a door, an Ayd came up from, a Ad came up from the earth. And it watered the whole face of the ground, the Adama. It watered the whole face of the Adama. And amazingly, he said, what was in Adama? Blood and water. When the mist hit the Adama, the blood water, the red clay, the redness, you got blood and water on the ground. And he said, why he pierced them in his side? He said, I'm the door. You know I'm that door. You know I'm that mist. You know I'm that water that hit the ground, that blood and water that hit the ground that mixed together. You know that blood and water that you eat from, that from that green pasture that you lay down in now. That's me. But one of the soldiers pierced him in his side, and the spear, and at once came out blood and water. And he who saw it bore witness, and his testimony is true. And he knows that he is telling the truth. He's like, I've seen that. That you also may believe. For these things took place that the scripture might be fulfilled. Not one bone will be broken. And again, the scripture says, they will look on him whom they have pierced. Right, so this is the book of Ezra. I think it's the book of Ezra. This book of Ezra. The book of Ezra. Book of Ezra, chapter, I think it's maybe that's not it. But you gotta go to Bereshit chapter 1. Let's go there real quick. Bereshit chapter 1. Bereshit chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit chapter 1, verse 1. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the Shamaim and the earth. This is Genesis 12 and 1. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. And Elohim said, let there be light. Let there be instructions. And there was instructions. For the commandments of the and the Torah is a light. And correction and reproof is a way of life. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim separated the light from the darkness. He said, I separated. What fellowship have light with darkness? What fellowship have Mashiach with Belial? It says, Elohim called the light day, Yom, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, first day. Akkad, oneness, one by one. It was Akkad. This is the first day of what? Chag Sukkah. This is the first day. It's the first day count toward the seventh day. But it's the first day, it's the seventh feast, but it's the first day count to the seventh day of Chag Sukkah. And he said, I made my people to dwell in booths. I made them to dwell in booths. I made them to dwell in booths. Because it is not written in your Torah, I said you are gods. Because when the womb was a body created for Adam. On the sixth day. But it's the first day, which means that you haven't even got your body. He said you haven't even got your body yet. To dwell inside. And it said right here. And it says, here we go. This is the book of this is the book of where we going to. This is the book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 1. Ezra, the book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 1. The book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 1. book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 1. And it says, when the seventh month came, and the children of Yasharah were in the towns, the people gathered as one man to Jerusalem. Then arose Yahusha, the son of Yosadak, with his fellow priests, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and their kinsmen, and they built an altar to the Elohim of Yasharah to offer burnt offerings on it. That's the same thing Abraham did. Right? He said the family grew up until that point. That's why they had so many people doing it. But when Abraham, it was just him. And it says right here, and it says, and they built their altar to Elohim Yasharah, so to offer burnt offerings, as it is written in the law, the Torah of Moshe, the man of Elohim. They set the altar in its place, for fear was on them because of the peoples of the land. That's the same thing today. And it says, and they offered burnt offerings in it to Yahuwah, burnt offerings morning and evening. And they kept the feast of booths, Sukkah, as it is written, and offered daily burnt offerings by number according to the rule, as each day required. And after that, regular burnt offerings, the offerings of the Kadash Yard, and all the appointed feasts of Yahuwah. And the offerings, everyone who made a free will offering. For the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to Yahuwah. But the foundation of the temple of Yahuwah was not yet laid. He said on the first day. He said the foundation was not yet laid. Is the foundation laid now? It says, so they gave money to the masons, the carpenters, food and drink, and oil, and Sidonia, and Tyrians, and cedar trees, and Lebanon, and sea, and Joppa, according to the grant that they had from Cyrus and king of Persia. Yeah, they had got a grant, money, to build it, because it was destroyed. And you see all these people today, when things get destroyed, they're always looking for a grant from, he said, the people around, the government. And then the government give them a grant, and then they allow them to build their city back. Right, so this is the book of, yeah. Right, the only reason I went there, right, because when they gathered together, they gathered as one man, a car, just like it was in the beginning. It was the first day. He said the first day of Chag Sukkah. But then after that, you can see how they realized, hey, we need to access this grant to build this booth, right? Because he said the foundation ain't even been laid yet. He said we haven't laid a foundation yet, because they wanted the money and nothing been laid yet. They wanted the money, but the foundation ain't been laid yet. He said the foundation hasn't been laid yet. Right, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10. It says, according to the grace or khan of Elohim given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid the foundation. And someone else is building upon it. Who laid the foundation? Let each one of you take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Yahushua Mashiach. He said, so back then they were trying to build a temple to Yahuwah. They would gather as one man, but they didn't have no foundation. They said, what foundation you got? He said, your foundation, are you sure you got the right foundation? He said, no foundation can, no, he said, no foundation, no other, he says, for no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Yahushua Mashiach, because who else going to do what he did? He said, why would you build upon something that's not him? He said, I was likened to a wise man who built his house on a rock. A ben, like Jacob laid on a rock the Abin, the Aleph, the Father, and the Son. Why would you build your foundation on anything other than that? The knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach is the foundation. And guess what happens? It says, now, verse 12 says, now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold and silver and precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become manifest. For the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed by fire. And the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. Why? Because it's not my word like fire. He said, who can hide from the heat? I prepared a tent for the sun. They hate the light. They don't come to the light because their foundation ain't right. It rhymes. Right, because their foundation ain't right. And it says right here, if the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burnt up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. He said that's the only way. It says, do you not know that you are, what? Do you not know that you are Yahuwah's temple? And the Ruach, Elohim's Ruach dwells in you? Huh? Do you not know that? For no foundation can you lay unless that is Yahushua Mashiach and knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach. That is the foundation, and you build on top of it. And guess what it says? It says, if anyone destroys the temple of Elohim, it says, anyone destroys Yahuwah's temple, Yahuwah will destroy him. For Yahuwah's temple is Kudash. Who else going to put it on? And you are that temple. Who else going to put this on? You are that temple. You are that tent, that ahal, that sukkah. Who else going to put this on? Who else going to put on love and calm? Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise in this age, let him become a fool that he may be wise. Become wise. For wisdom of the world is folly with Yahuwah. For as it is written, he catches the wise in his craftiness. And again, Yahuwah knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are worthless. What fellowship have Mashiach with Belial? Worthless. So let no one boast in men, in human beings. For all things are yours. For all things. This is the last couple things. This is the last things. This is the book of, where are we going? Yeah, so this is the book of, we're going back to Azra, the book of Ezra. The book of Ezra. Book of Ezra, chapter 7. Let's see. Yeah, Book of Ezra, chapter 6. Book of Ezra, chapter 6, verse 13. It says, Then according to the word sent by Darius the king, Tatanai, the governor of the province beyond the river of Shebenoza, and his associates did with all diligence what Darius the king had ordered. And the elders of the Yahudim built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai, the Nabi, and Zechariah, the son of Edo. They finished their building by decree of Elohim and Yasharal, by decree of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, the king of Persia. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month Aydah, in the 6th year of the reign of Darius. And the people of Yasharal, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the returned to exile celebrated the dedication of the house of Elohim with joy. Right? They did it with joy. Right? They did it with joy, right? So we're skipping over to chapter 7 and where we at? Actually, yeah. Chapter 7, verse 7:22. Actually, 7:24. 7:24. It says, "We also notify you that it shall not be lawful to impose tribute, custom, or toll on any one of the priests, the Levites, the singers, the doorkeepers, the temples, the servants, or other servants of his house of Elohim. And you, Azra, according to the wisdom your Elohim that is in your hand, appoint magistrates and judges who may judge all the people in the province beyond the river, all such as know the laws, the Turah of your Elohim." He said, you got to know. Because who going to judge the world? Who else going to judge the world? Who else going to do judgment? Who else going to put on love and joy? Who else going to do that? And it says, and those who do not know them, you shall teach, huh? He said you have to know it. Whoever will not obey the Torah of your Elohim and the Torah of the king, let judgment be strictly executed on him. People say what? Whether the death or for banishment, or for confiscation of his goods, or of imprisonment. All right, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 6. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 1. When one of you has a grievance against another, does he not dare go to the law before the unrighteous? You're going to go to them? Instead of the Kadashim, the saints? Who else going to do it? Who else going to put this on? Who else can do this? Or do you not know that the Kadashim going to judge the world? So who else going to do this? He said they don't know it, you need to teach it to them. And it says, and if the world is to be judged by you, are you incompetent to try trivial cases? Do you not know that we are to judge Malachim? He said, do you not know we judging super beings, Malachim, that you can't see with your natural sight? How much more then matters pertaining to this life? So if you have such cases, why do you lay them before those who have no standing inside of the body? It says, I say this to your shame. Can it be that there is no one among you who is wise enough to settle a dispute between the brothers and sisters? Why? Is nobody in there knows the Torah? Nobody, he said, nobody knows the Torah? That before the unbelievers, to have lawsuits at all with one another is already a defeat for you. And he says, why not rather suffer wrong? Why not rather be defrauded? He said, why are you wasting your time? You might just suffer the loss. Why are you entangling yourself in matters in human affairs? But you yourselves wrong and defraud even your own brothers and sisters. Or do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah? Do not be deceived. He said, we just read, don't be deceived. He said, don't you see this? He said, let no one deceive themselves. Neither sexual immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the Malkuth of Elohim. And such were some of you. But you were washed. How you say? A mist came up. An aid. And it came, watered the ground. He said, you washed. And get what it says. You were sanctified. You were justified in the name of the Master Yahushua Mashiach by the Ruach of our Elohim. He said, don't y'all know you're going to be judging? Right, so this is the last thing. This is Philippians chapter 3, verse 1. Philippians chapter 3, verse 1. This is Philippians chapter 3, verse 1. It says, finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice in the master. To write the same things to you in no, it says, to write the same things to you in no trouble to me. And it's safe for you. Look out for the dogs. Look out for the evildoers. Look out for those who mutilate the flesh. For we are the circumcision, who worship Yahuwah by the Ruach of Elohim, and the Kabod of Mashiach Yahushua, and put no confidence in the flesh. Though I myself have reason for confidence in the flesh also, if anyone else thinks that he has reason for confidence in the flesh, I have more. Circumcised the 8th day. Who circumcised the 8th day? Abraham. Because he ain't dealt so with no other people. Who else he gonna give this to? Who else gonna put this on? Who else gonna do this? Of the people of Yasharal, who else gonna put this on? Because he ain't dealt so with no other people. So who all these people Shaul giving who they getting inheritance with? Shaul's writing to people because wherever the tribe you dwell among, that's who you get your inheritance with. So what tribe are these people getting inheritance with? Let's see. And it says right here. It says, circumcised the 8th day of the people of Yasharal, of the tribe of Benjamin. So who are all these people whom Shaul who converted all over? What tribe they getting their inheritance with? You just read it right there. What other people they giving inheritance to? What other people he dealt with? Of the tribe of Benjamin. Who they getting their inheritance with? With Shaul. For whatsoever tribe you from, that's who your inheritance go to. And it says, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, I breed. As to the Torah, a Pharisee. And it says, as zeal persecutors of the body, as to righteousness under the law. Turah, blameless. But whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Mashiach. Now you question that. Why? Why would you question that? Why would he count all that he learned from the Torah loss? Why would he count all that he had? Because he learned all the Torah, the 12 tribes, the 12 gates, 3 to the north, 3 to the south, east to the west, all the Ezekiel, Haggai. We went through all the Azra, all that, all the way back to Abraham, back to Adam. Why would he cancel all that out? That makes absolutely no sense, right? Why? Because there was something that was wrong with him building on top of that. Because he couldn't build nothing really solid on top of that. Let's see what happened. And it says, as zeal of persecuting the congregation, as to righteousness under the law, blameless. But whatsoever I had gained, I counted as loss for the sake of Mashiach. Indeed, I count everything lost. Why? Because he has found, what he said, beware how you build on the foundation. You're going to suffer loss, but you still can, what? You're going to be saved through fire. It says, but what I have gained, I have counted as loss for the sake of Mashiach. Indeed, I count everything as lost because of surpassing the worth of knowing Mashiach, my master. You mean the foundation, the true foundation, not the foundation they had in Azra. We're talking about a real foundation. For his sake, I have suffered loss of all things and count them as rubbish. Why? Because he's been judged by fire. Because he said you're going to take all your possessions. Remember we just read in Azra, they said you're going to be judged and you're going to be taking all your possessions, take all your stuff, and be for banishment. Didn't Shaul get banished? Yahushua sent him out. He got banished. And he got all his stuff gone. When he got banished out of Jerusalem and told him to go to Goim, then he lost everything. Even his stuff. His possessions. He said, why? Why he say, forsake all and follow me? Because he lost everything. And then go what he said. And he counted them as rubbish in order that he might gain Mashiach and be found in him not having a righteousness. So now we understand He said, he's still not having a righteousness. We know it's our righteousness to keep his commandments. Not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the Torah. Because it's his own righteousness. And guess what? He still had righteousness, the righteousness to keep the commandments, but he was just doing it without a wrong foundation. And guess what happened? Of my own that comes from the Torah, but that which comes through your Amunah and Mashiach. That righteousness from Elohim that depends on Amunah, belief. That I may know him, the power of his resurrection. Why? Because you could still do something and not have belief. I can keep a feast day, a cause, but I don't understand it. And may share in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection of the dead. That's the whole point. That I may attain the resurrection of the dead. Because if I don't build on the foundation of Yahushua Mashiach, I'm not going to attain the resurrection from the dead. I'm going to stay down in the ground. He's going to leave me. I'm going to be in the second resurrection. I'm going to maintain my envy, my jealousy, and all the hatred I had. And guess what? I'm not going to be in the first resurrection if I don't put the foundation of Yahushua Mashiach. Verse 12 says, not that I have already obtained this, am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own, because Mashiach Yahushua has made it his own, made me his own. So you think Shaul made it his own? It's 2,500 years later. 2,500, about 3,000 years later, and people still wondering if Shaul made it his own. And by the time you figure out if Shaul made it his own, you ain't gonna make it your own. And then people saying, he said, by the time you figure that out. And people going to the books, and like, by the time people figure it out, he's like, I gotta make it my own too. And you know what it says? This is the last thing. It says, but that which comes from, it says, verse 10 says, that I may know him that by the power of his resurrection, and may share in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection of the dead. Not that I have already obtained this, am already perfect, but I press on to make it my own, because Mashiach Yahushua has made me his own. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind, and straining forward to what lies ahead. I press toward the goal of the prize of the upward call of Mashiach Yahushua. Let those of us who are mature, when I was a child, I spake like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I ate grass like herbs for a whole 7 periods, actually longer than that now, then I realized, and my reason came back in myself. And I realized, Yahuwah rules in the Malkuth of Shamayim, and he gives it to whomever he will. And he gave it to Yahushua Mashiach. And it'd be great for a person to put him as your foundation and seek to attain the resurrection of the dead. And it says right here, he said, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal of the prize of the upward call of Mashiach Yahushua. Let those who are mature think this way. He said, are you mature? Or are you still an immature child? They say a little baby infant that crawling on the ground, or you stand on your feet. Because you know, mature children, you can actually say something. Mature children can understand. It's like a mature child who's able to follow his father. And it says, if anything you think otherwise, if you ain't mature, Yahuwah will reveal that also to you. Only let us hold true to what we have attained. Because right now, this is 2,500 years ago. So they attained something, they say, okay, we still got more to know. And you don't have that. People saying they think they have it. You don't even have it. You don't have that knowledge. You don't even know what they attained. And by the time you figure out what they attained, you yourself ain't going to have attained it. Because you don't know what they attained in those 2,500 years, or those years they had left. You don't know. But what did one has to do now? He said, I got to forget. I got to press on to what's ahead. People so busy looking at what happened 2,500 years ago, he's like, so what's ahead? What do I need to know now? All right, this is the book of Romans chapter 11, verse 1. Romans chapter 11, verse 1. Romans chapter 11, verse 1. He says, I asked then, has Yahuwah Elohim rejected his people? Huh? For you to say that, you know how people say, the law has been done away with, the Torah has been done away with. For that to happen, you have to stop the sun from shining. And if you stop the sun from shining, I won't be able to say I'm black and beautiful. Right? You can't do that. Because Yahushua Mashiach, it's a beautiful thing to behold the sun. It's an inheritance. Because he prepared a tent for the sun in you. It says, have Yahuwah rejected his people? By no means. For I myself am a Israelite, or Yasharal. I'm of Yasharal. That's when they say Israelite. I'm of Yasharal, a descendant of Abraham. Because he ain't dealt so with no other people. So why would you people say anything other than that? And it says, a member of the tribe of Benjamin. Elohim has not rejected his people, which he foreknew. For you not know what the scripture says to Al Yahu. How he appeals to Elohim against Yasharal. Yahuwah, they have killed your Nabi'im. They have demolished your altars. What are we supposed to build during Chag Sukkah? An altar, and guess what they do? We tore them down. Isn't that what they do today? They demolish your altars, and alone I am left, and they seek my life. He's like, I'm the only one left. They coming after me, but they come at me with words, javelins, profanity. Then they come at me with everything they got. And get what he said. But what does Elohim reply to him? I have kept for myself 7,000 men and women. Men, what basically it says, but they have wives, is who have not bowed the knee to Baal. He said, I ain't bowing to Baal. He said, see to it, at this present time, there is a remnant chosen by what? By grace, by kindness. Who else gonna put it on? Who else gonna put it on? Who else gonna put this on? Who else gonna put on grace? Who gonna put on kindness? Who else gonna put it on? What other people gonna put this on? Verse 6 says, but if it is by Khan, it is no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, Khan would no longer be Khan. Right? He said it wouldn't even be Khan. Right? So look at all that, and then we go to last thing. This is the book of. It's the book of. It's the book of. Oh yeah. Yeah, book of. Yeah, it's the book of Zechariah, chapter 13. Zechariah, chapter 13. Zechariah, chapter 13. Zechariah, chapter 13. Yeah. Zechariah, chapter 13. It says, on that day there shall be a fountain open to the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, to cleanse them from the sin and uncleanness. Right? That's why when the mist came up from the door, mist came up and they spilled water. They spilled water on the Adama. That's when Yahushua was pierced inside, out came blood and water. And on that day declares Yahuwah, I will cut off the names of the idols from the land. What fellowship have Mashiach with idols? So that they shall be remembered no more. And also I will remove from the land the Nabi'im and the spirits of uncleanness. And if anyone again prophesies, his father and mother who bore him will say to him, you shall not live, for you speak lies in the name of Yahuwah. And then what they say today? Why? Because they worship idols. They trapped. They caged birds. They ain't been set free. They've caged birds. So therefore they think everything you say is a lie. You get what it says? For you speak lies in the name of Yahuwah, and his father and mother who bore him shall pierce him through when he nobbles. On that day, even the Nabi will be ashamed of the vision that he prophesies, right? Right, so, man, get to it. Right, so this is, he said, when he prophesies. He said, when he prophesies. Right, so, when he prophesies. Go to Zechariah 12 and 5. Zechariah 12 and 5. Zechariah 12 and 5. It says, on that day I will make the clans of Yehuda like a blazing pot in the midst of wood. He's like, I'm gonna make that thing hot. And it says, like a blazing pot in the midst of wood, like a flaming torch among sheaves. Because it's like fire. And it says, and they shall devour to the right and to the left, and all the surrounding peoples. They can be like fire. While Jerusalem shall again be inhabited in its place in Jerusalem. When are they going to do that? And Yahuwah will give salvation to the tents of Yahuwah. To what? To the tents of Yahuwah first. Because Yahuwah made us to dwell in booths, in tents. He said he's going to give it to the tents of Yahuwah first. That the Kabbalah, the house of David, Daoud, and the Kabbalah in the inhabitants of Jerusalem may not surpass that of Yahuwah. Why? On that day, Yahuwah will protect the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the feeblest among them on that day shall be like Daoud. Wow, they're going to be beloved. As Yahuwah chosen, put on beloved and compassionate hearts. But know ye not that you're going to judge the world? And how you going to judge the world? With the Torah? Or you mean with fire? And you got to know it. And if you don't know it, somebody has to teach it to you. And guess what happens? It says, on that day, Yahuwah will protect the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the feeblest among them on that day shall be like Daoud, and the house of Daoud like David, like what? Like God, like Elohim. Because it is not written in your Torah, I said you are gods. And if you're gonna judge, you can't judge the small. You are Elohim. You can't even judge the small matters. Do you know you're gonna judge Malachim? You're gonna be like gods. And he says, like the Malach of Yahuwah going before them. Who? Like Yahusha. Because who said he go before the sheep? Yahusha Mashiach. Why do you think Yahusha was going before the sheep? He said, behold, I send a Malach in the way. Behold, I send a Malach to keep you in the way. Beware of him and obey his voice. Because when Yahusha come back the second time, he's not going to be part of the transgressions. Because he already told you already. And when he come back the second time, he's not going to be doing that. Because his name is in him. He's like, I ain't doing that. When he come back, there ain't going to be none of that. And he says, and on that day, I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. He's like, and we're not talking about, he said, oh, we're talking about the real people. You know, he's talking about today. We're talking about the ones that when they study in war, all that stuff they're doing. No, he said, no. I'm talking about the people I chose a long time ago that people forgot. They just cast away in the nations in Psalms 83, and they got together and they made an agreement and made Yasharal and Yehuda cease from being a nation, try to make their name remembered no more, so that somebody else can take over and say that's them. But guess what it says? Verse 10 says, and I will pour out on the house of David, Daoud, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace. Oh, you mean kind? Oh, you mean who else gonna put this on? Who else gonna put this on? And guess what happens? And please for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, oh, you mean the man whom they pierced in the side, and out came blood and water? Oh, you mean a mist came up and hit the Adama? Whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him. And who's supposed to look on him whom they pierced? He said, Yochanan, the revelation of Yahushua Mashiach, to show unto his servants the thing that must shortly come to pass. He said, I'm the Alpha and Omega. I'm the Aleph and the Two, the beginning and the first and the last. He said, all the tribes shall wail, even those that pierced him. Who pierced him? Yehuda. Because he ain't dealt so with no other people and no other nation. It's always been about the 12 tribes. He said Yehuda pierced him. And get what happened? And you shall mourn for him as the mourning of an only child, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps over the firstborn. Right? So this is the Book of Jubilees, pseudeprographa. Book of Jubilees, pseudeprographa. I'm talking 124. Book of Jubilees, pseudeprographa. Book of Jubilees, pseudeprographa. Book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 3, verse 15. Book of Jubilees, Pseudepigrapha, chapter 3, verse 15. It says, and during the first week of the first Jubilee, Adam and his wife had been in the Garden of Eden for 7 years. That's what it says here. It says, tilling and guarding it. And we gave him work, and we were teaching him to do according which was appropriate for tilling. And he was tilling. It says, and he was naked, and he neither knew it nor was ashamed. And he was guarding the garden from the birds, the beasts, and the cattle, and gathering in fruits and eating. And he's people gathering the fruits for the produce for the offerings. And it says, and he used to set aside the rest for himself and his wife. So he did all that to the offerings, and then he would set aside the rest for himself and for his wife. And what was being guarded, he set aside. Right? Because once you gather it in, he said everybody else need to eat too. Right? But he set it aside. Everything that was supposed to be used for tilling and for he was instructed in what to do. Right? So this is Nazarene Asher the Shalakim Basur, how good news give power over demons. Right, chapter 16. It says, you see how it's important to acknowledge Yahuwah and the observance of a divine obedience, which not only protects you from who believes from the assaults of demons, but also gives them command over those who rule over others. And therefore it is necessary for those who are the going nations to betake yourselves to Yahuwah and to keep yourself from all uncleanness, that the demons may be expelled and Yahuwah may dwell inside of you, because he's prepared a tent for the sun. In you, he put a tent for the sun. And he says, at the same time, by prayers, commit yourselves to Yahuwah and call for his aid against the impotent demons, for whatsoever things you ask, believing you will receive. How you going to get it? You said, you are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. And whatsoever you ask in my Father's name, he will give it to you. He said, I'll give it to you. He said, you can't bear fruit by yourself. He said, if you walk in a high of joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, and moon of self-control, and whatsoever you ask in my name, I'm going to give it to you. And you have power over the spirits and over other people who got spirits. People say, I want spiritual powers. He said, get spiritual fruit. And get what it says. And it says, but even the demons themselves, in proportion as they see Amunah, faith, belief, growing in man and woman, in proportion they depart from him or her, residing only in the part in which something of infidelity still remains. But for those who believe with full Amunah, they depart without any delay. For when the Ruach has come to Amunah of Yahuwah, it obtains the virtue of the heavenly water, by which it extinguishes the demon like a spark of fire. You mean like the mist. Like the Right, this is for all of you, Ukanan 2:24 through 29. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. So who else going to put it on from the beginning? Who else going to put on a love that was from the beginning? Have you read in Ode Shalom? Who else going to put that on? Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. And what you heard from the beginning abides in you. Then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father, the Ben and the Ah, the life of the house and the strength of the house. And this is the promise he has made to us, eternal life. He said, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. He said, also, you can let no one deceive himself. He said, yourself can deceive you. But also those who teach say, oh, you don't got to do that. You deceive, you don't practice righteousness. Because righteousness goes before us. So if you're trying to tell me to do something, which means you're telling me to do something in the future, which means if it ain't got nothing to do with no righteousness, then guess what? I already know you're a liar. For future tense. Because I only can go forward. I can't go back. So therefore, if you tell me to do something and it's going forward and you talking it ain't righteousness, I already know you're lying. Verse 26, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. But the anointing you have received from him abides in you. Why? Because in you I prepared a tent for the sun. And you have no need that anyone should teach you. He said, why? Because you know the Torah. Because what with Ezra, when they was going to judge the world, he said, make sure you put some people here to judge who know the Torah. But if those who don't know the Torah, he said, you need somebody to teach it to you. But as his anointing teaches you about everything, and it's true, and there's no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. Verse 28, and now little children, abide in him. If my words abide in you, you shall bear fruit. So that when he appears, you may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. And then what happened to Ezra? Because what happened to Adam when he came into the garden? He hid behind the bush. He said, Adam, where are you? He said, I heard you coming, I heard your voice coming, and I hid myself. He's like, so you must have ate from the tree. Because before you weren't ashamed. I taught you everything to till the ground with, we just read. But then now you all hiding in the bushes. So now you ashamed now. He said, shame at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, we know Yahushua righteous. We know he right, like the song says. He says, you may be sure. Now he said, you may not be sure. I don't know yet. This might be skeptical. You may be sure that everyone, that means male or female, who practice righteousness has been born of him. He said, except a man be born again, he cannot see the Malkuth of Shamayim. He cannot see the kingdom of Elohim and be a kingdom of Mamlakah of Kahan. You gotta be born again. You gotta become like a child. You can't even lead nobody in if you don't become like a child. He said, I gotta humble myself like a child, knowing to lead somebody in the kingdom. He said, yeah. You ain't gonna be able to judge nobody. That's what Shaul had to do. Shaul had to humble himself like a child, lose everything he had, go suffer loss, and become like a child and learn all over again. I suffered every loss of everything in order to gain Mashiach. That's the only way you're gonna get it. Then he had to build on top of that what he already did. When we don't know what they actually did, you only got a little bit. And by the time you figure all that out, your life will be over. So he said, walk while you got the life. So you can be sure that those who practice righteousness is born of him. Or Sadak and Sadakah. They're both male and female. So we look at all this. We look at the first day of Chag Sukkah. We look at the Feast of Booths. Or look at the temporary dwelling places. We look at the destruction, the disasters that happen. We look at the temporary dwelling place. We look at being in one spot, now you're in another spot. Things that I say, man, I'm in another place, not even in the same spot anymore. He said, I gotta move somewhere else to do it. He said, yeah. And then guess what? Good thing you have people around you who actually wanted to do it. Because when they left out of Mizraim, they had to keep something. They say, some people stayed. He said, some people stayed. He's like, we ain't going there. He said, why? That's too far. It costs too much money. And get what happened? They stayed. He said, but I can't focus on what's behind. I only can focus on what's forward. If I can't keep moving forward in the midst of adversity, what good am I? What good is anybody? Because that's the whole point. Because righteousness is in front of us. Yahuwah got your back. Yahuwah said, I handle all that back there. You just keep going forward and you keep doing righteousness. That's all you got to do. All right, so we look at this day. We look at the first day, Chag Sukkah, and we keep moving forward in righteousness. We dwell in booths 7 days. Not only do we dwell in booths in a natural tent, a hall, a natural booth, our sukkah, but we also look into the one when he comes to tabernacles with us, when he comes down to the earth. Right, so we look at all that. We look at all of his truth. We look at the knowledge of Yahushua Mashiach. We look at these 7 days. It's the first day, but we look at it as the 8th day. It's approaching. mean, that's a 6 days, 6 days you labor and the 7th you rest. But there's the 8th day. When we look at all these 8th day, we look at all these things that transpire on the earth. We know that he said, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth," about those who get ready to sound the Turah, because all these things are getting ready to take place, and it's all a practice, a prelude to what's getting ready to the future. All right, so we look at ourselves, we look at our inward man, we look at our inward thoughts, we look at our inward being. We look to stay in humble and meekness and lowliness of mind, that we may walk in newness of life. All right, so we look at everything that was happened. We look at the 7th day, 7th feast. Look at Chag Sukkah. They say dwelling in the midst of the yard. Right? How you say in the midst of the 3 branches to the left and the 3 branches to the right. And he say now he's in the midst. Right? Now he's in the midst. Now he say the sukkah is in the midst. And we look at all these things that transpire in the world, and we look at ourselves as that tent. We look at ourselves as that dwelling place. So we look at ourselves and look at the truth, look at the meek of the earth, look at the humble of the earth. Those who will humble themselves in righteousness, for he will beautify the humble with salvation from Yehuda. Because he's going to give the tents of Yehuda salvation first. And he's going to beautify the tents of Yehuda first with salvation. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.